Readers,
reviewers,
countrymen,
lend us your ears. And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you to the Pit Fighters, the First Swords, and all of the Bright Stars, Truth and Courage.
Hello and welcome to the video today. We are going to be talking about our favourite releases of 2024. We've done our book awards, we've done our favourite reads of the year. Today we're getting a bit more specified. We're zoning in on the target of books that were published in 2024. We know it's important to talk about books that are published recently. Not only is the whole community talking about them a lot more than other books, so it's nice to read them together, but we also know it's very important for authors out there to have their books talked about. And we are a very small channel, but we can do our small part. We know how important it is and how much it means to Papa Gwyn. And so here we are talking about the releases of 2024. We've got 8 or 9. Most of them we actually both read, so we aligned a lot there. We've got a variety of genres, and then we do have some books that only one brother read, and so we'll do a short pitch for those as well.
Yeah, I mean, this video is very much so last year, but it's the last one. We'll be, really milking 2024. Of everything it had, everything it could give us. But we're going to be talking about these books that released in 2024. We're very excited for the books released this year as well. But
many of these I haven't even picked up since last week. So let's get into it. The releases of 2024. What's the first one you want to discuss, Ed?
I have to talk about The Silver Blood Promise by James Logan. So James Logan, aka James Long, has worked with Papa Gwyn, does work with Papa Gwyn. And he's a great editor. So I was very, very excited to see what The Silver Blood Promise was all about. And this gives us that promise of Locke Lamora vibes just by looking at the cover. I think every review will mention the inspiration of Locke Lamora. But to me, I think the biggest takeaway is, if you are from the UK, you probably would have played these games, but they're the games Fable, Fable 1, Fable 2, Fable 3.
Wow.
Still good.
At a push.
Not great, but Fable 1 and 2 was probably my favourite 2 games of all time.
Maybe it's sort of nostalgia as well. I remember loving Fable 3, but then it came out more at the time when I was a little bit of the playing age.
Yeah, you were a bit down here, if you know what I mean. But when you're mature, you understand that Fable 3 didn't hit the heights of the first 2. But Fable 1 and 2, Fable The Lost Chapters, stunning game. But to me, it's got that mix of heroic adventure with kind of snarky characters with a really British sense of humour.
Nice.
And those games, I think, were perfect. This book was absolutely fantastic in capturing that spirit of those games, of that British humour, as well as, making these friends, making, companions, and it did such a great job. I love the way that James Logan unfolded lots of layers. This was a great onion.
It's like, I was just about to say it's like an onion.
It's like an ogre, this book is. There are lots of layers to it, full of dark corners and dark deeds that people are committing. So it had a really good balance of dark moments as well as the light. There's a bit of hope as well as some, intense brutality going on, which is a fantasy book, which we're always looking for, I guess, intense brutality. But it's a great book. It's a riveting read. It's really funny, really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what James Logan does next.
And it was your debut award winner for the Brothers Grimm Book
Oscars.
Awards.
Yeah,
so you can check that out
win an award
if you haven't already. And now the first book I'm talking about today, one that probably won the most awards for me, was The Daughter's War by Christopher Buehlman. This is a prequel to The Black Tongue Thief, but I know I'm about to commit sacrilege. We've been told off by some people, but I say you can read this without having read The Black Tongue Thief.
It does.
Because I've forgotten.
I love things chronologically.
Yes.
I read the Lonesome Dove series chronologically. People have told me, I don't belong in just the world.
You cannot talk about books anymore.
No.
So we might be committing sacrilege, but I stand by it. The Daughter's War is very different.
It's willing sacrilege.
Tone and atmosphere to The Black Tongue Thief as well.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like people didn't click with The Black Tongue Thief, don't want to try this.
They will double click this.
To.
Right click even.
They might right click with it. This is what epic fantasy should be in the modern age, in my opinion. It's taken the classic vibes of goblins, armies of goblins encroaching on the human lands as an almost eschatological threat, ending humanity. But then we've got this modern...
That was a big word. What do you think YouTube's going to do when it does subtitles? Eschatological. What?
Echo. Sorry.
What does that mean?
It's like world ending.
Oh,
Kind
stunning.
of beyond your living.
Just say big. Okay.
It's got big goblins armies in it. And so The Daughter's War, it has that epic backdrop that we love in classic fantasy, but then it's very intimate and driven by a gritty story from the main characters. And it feels very realistic and brutal, and that's the way that I like modern fantasy supplies. It doesn't glorify war, although there are moments of glory in the bravery, but it's not saying that war is good.
It feels to me, I've just thought of this, but it feels like, like Joe Abercrombie, his action, his characters, they are all in the mud. I mean, not literally in the mud, or not in the way that Lord Grimdark says it, but they're in the mud. But it's also got this like Papa Gwyn style of hope and friendship, and there's that, and family that comes into play, mixed in with that Joe Abercrombie-esque world.
Yes, I agree.
Which is a really cool mixture.
I do agree, and I would say that this book does better than anything else I've read the sense of impending doom. And also payoff, satisfaction, heartbreak, and a whole array of other emotions. It's a book that really delivers, as Ed would say, it's a great postman. And that is The Daughter's War, my favourite fantasy read of 2024. My favourite read, full stop, of 2024. Please, if you haven't already, pick it up.
So my book of the year, both of our books of the year were a book that was released that year, which is actually very rare.
Pretty
because we read so many books that are in our backlist.
Yeah.
And, if you really, to have read 10 of the same books or 9 of the same books, I think it's quite impressive.
I was going to say, I think so. I read 68 books last year, and I think that 14 were new releases.
That's good.
So for one of that, that's about a fifth.
I love a new release, and Glorious Exploits was a book that took me by complete surprise. I was going to Greece on a holiday, and I thought I need some, books that are set in Greece or set in that period, that classical ancient period, to take with me. And I just love a yellow cover. It's my favourite colour, I think, on a book. And I saw this in Waterstones, saw that it was up for Waterstones debut of the year or something, and I took it with me. And it quickly became one of my favourite books I've ever read. It's the story of these two potters in Syracuse, which is a country that was at war with Athens, and these two potters have just lost their jobs and they want to, set up a play. They want to start a theatre play, a theatre group. The only people willing to do it, to be their actors, their cast, were a bunch of Athenian ex-soldiers who were just rotting away in this quarry. And they then hosted a Euripides play. And it sounds completely crazy. It is crazy. The prose is rich and beautiful. The characters are fantastic. And to me, Glorious Exploits is just one of the many reasons why I love to read.
And Glorious Exploits was just exceptional. It was quite an emotionally draining read in how moving it is, but also it really kind of livened me up for wanting to read a lot more. When people say, the book is about the human condition, I think that's just said far too freely, because basically every book is, because it engages with emotions that we feel. But this is one that I think particularly resonated with me in terms of kind of these potters are searching for a meaning to their life amongst so much darkness going on, and not just around their lives but at the heart of it. And it happens during this book, but the power of meaning and the power of friendship, it is done in such a beautiful way in Glorious Exploits, where it feels stark and real, so it's not pretentious and it's not romanticized at all. It feels real and powerful, and I think about it genuinely all the time. If we did a list of the books we talk about the most or think about the most, this would be up there for me. It's one that I'll be
like the recency
discussing
bias
for many years.
has disappeared now. It's faded because we read it in August. That's a few months ago. But it still holds like a really important part of our reading experience the last few years.
I always think of recency bias. Am I going to love this in a few months as much as I do now? This is one of those that has just risen in my estimations over time.
Nice.
There we go, Ed. And next up for me, I've got a conclusion to a series that we both loved, and that is The Land of the Living and the Dead, the finale of the first era of Ghoulsong by Shauna Lawless. Political machinations hitting their peak, a lot more action here, the big payoffs that the plot has been building towards for 3 installments. I thoroughly enjoyed The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. I enjoyed Book 2, The Words of Kings and Prophets, even more, and for me, this is the peak of the trilogy. I also love the novellas, but they're a bit more in the background. You don't have to have read them. They enrich the experience, but they're not necessities. I nearly talked about them today because they also published in 2024 and they're so unique in what they achieved. But still, if I had to pick to read one or the other, I would pick The Land of the Living and the Dead, because they're characters you're so invested in, and some of the twists and turns and surprises. I did not know Shauna Lawless could be that brutal, and she can.
Yeah, she dealt some savagery with these characters.
She did.
And what I love is, especially about this series, that there are two novellas that are kind of sandwiched by these books as well, or they're the filling, really, aren't they? These are the bread, they're the tuna, the mayo, the red onion, maybe a bit of spring onion, bit of cheese. They're the novellas. And they brought so much to this series, and I just thought it was absolutely superb how they really brought it together. They added as well as explored already set themes, really.
Yeah.
You want to speak?
Apologies to those who have no idea what this series is about. We probably should have given a premise.
Terrible.
It is historical fiction and fantasy. So it's historical fantasy. We're set in late 10th century, early 11th century Ireland, and we've got the historical events going on in that time of the Irish and the Viking conflict.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, we've got the Irish mythology on top. Two kind of mystical orders who have been in an enmity, locked in conflict for many hundreds of years, and it's coming to another peak.
So I'm a Viking Age reenactor. We like to play with swords, really, don't we?
Yeah.
And also, I obviously have a passion for the Viking Ages, the Dark Ages, the early medieval period, some call it now as well. I'm really burnt out with the Vikings set in Britain. I've read so many books set in that period. So many books exploring the same themes in the same way, the same characters, over and over again. And to me, we've got to have a switch up. We've got to have a change. You've got to inject something that's fresh into it. A bit of vodka into the orange, as some people would say as well. Some people, not me. Plagiarism.
A bit of spice.
Their words, not mine. Okay, Chris Eubank. So, The Land of the Living and the Dead explores that same period, but just set in Ireland. So set in a country, and it feels so incredibly different to, let's say, Bernard Cornwell's The Last Kingdom series, which is a great series. But for me, at my stage at the moment, I'm not keen to read more of that kind of story.
Yeah.
So what I love about it is that it explores something slightly different. Even though we're in familiar territory, it then takes it into a new direction. One of the many reasons why I love Robert Lowe's The Oathsworn series, because it takes these Viking peoples and it puts them in different cultures, different scenarios, which are historically accurate, but they're different to what's been explored in literature so far. Very true. Shauna Lawless, she is a fantastic writer. The way that she writes a crescendo, the way that she has multiple POVs, then coming together, there are some absolutely incredible scenes here.
Yeah, forget Sanderlanche, we've got Shauna Lynch.
I completely agree. I would banish Sanderlanche.
Okay, ahead again, too far.
Sorry.
Too far. But talking about unique takes on stories that have been done similarly before, we've got your next book, Ed.
We do have my next book, indeed. And again, mentioning Bernard Cornwell, he has done a very fantastic trilogy about this person. And so has Giles Christian, because Arthur was my historical fiction book of the year for so many reasons. But the main one being Giles Christian is one of the most beautiful writers
he is
ever. Beautiful man.
And
great words too.
Yeah.
But it's just fantastic. And what I love about this book in particular is that the first two books, which were Lancelot and Camelot, I was never a big fan of Arthur. To me, Arthur was the weakest part of those books. And I always loved the cast around him, but it's so hard to write a legendary character like Arthur. In this, he came into his own, and I think it's going to completely change him on a reread for me. It's going to make that even more impactful.
Yeah.
And for a writer to basically toss that coin and it flips over the other side. I mean, he's the Anton Chigurh of historical fiction. Well, maybe I won't say that. He's the only person I could think who chucks a coin.
Yeah, not in that way.
But he's not a murderer. Well, lots of people do die in this.
They do die. Arthur is a companion tale in the Arthurian Tales trilogy, but you can read it on its own or you can read the previous ones. But basically, it is a story wrapped up in its own.
Yeah.
We have two perspectives. We've got Beren, an old man, a veteran fighting for a mercenary group, but then he's tasked to kill a boy, and instead he turns on those that he fights with and he saves the boy because this child might be able to save Britain.
Yeah.
And then our other perspective is Arthur as a boy. We follow him, we see how he obtained the virtues and vices that would rule him as a man of myth and legend. and it is a sensational story that, again, a correlating theme with many of these books is that they speak to you emotionally.
Yeah.
It's very hard for a book to do that, and many, it can seem a bit forced. These are the books that succeeded for us in 2024.
Yeah.
Arthur, I think, is very poignant, powerful, and there is a prevalent theme of regret, which many books don't deal with as much because it is emotion you can't really culminate in one scene. It's something that is carried on as an undertone throughout the story.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Arthur deals with so wonderfully that I have not seen before. It takes Arthur in a very new direction, and it really gave me a lot of hope. It shows that I adore the Arthurian legend, and it can be done in a fresh way still in the modern age.
And also, if you like the film Logan, then you'll love this.
Yes, yeah. People might be intrigued by that. It's not got Wolverine running around.
Yeah,
but it
Hugh
is
Jackman's
great.
in it.
Yeah. Next up, I have got You Like It Dark by Stephen King. I did not expect to put a short story collection on this list, but here we are. Stephen King.
You're so random, Will.
I'm just so random. I
random.
mean, I don't know if you've read this author, but I feel like I've discovered it.
He's going to be big.
He's going to be big one day. And so Stephen King, he shows that he can just write characters with ease. It's almost like showing off. I was like, you just can't do that. In these short stories, some are about 7-8 pages, and the characters are so memorable. He's obviously been writing for a long, long time, and he's known for his strength in characters. And here, he's just showing it once again. Throughout all these stories, I love the mix of some are very short tales, some kind of subvert a story that we've heard before or seen before, and some are a bit larger, like there's a crime investigation with a supernatural element.
Yeah.
What Stephen King does so well.
He does indeed.
And so he basically just does everything you know him for in here in a mix of short stories that is gripping from beginning to end. So I highly recommend it as a palate cleanser because, of course, with short story collections, you can read 2 or 3 and then leave, read something else, come back, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. You're onto a winner.
Is he our uncle, though?
No, I'm not sure. Maybe.
And I don't know if Will's read this book yet, but The Fury of the Gods was mine and many other people's most anticipated read of 2024 when we knew it was coming out, because it was a long journey, wasn't it? But The Fury of the Gods was, I think, everything that we were hoping it would be. It was a fantastic climax to my favourite Papa Gwyn series. It started with a bang with Shadow. Hunger just set up this amazing promise. And then The Fury of the Gods was just that bone-crunching, world-shattering crescendo that I think the world deserved.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing journey. It was fantastic to see the ending here, the characters that have been playing out in this trilogy, and it's set in the in a world inspired by the Viking Ages, which I absolutely loved. And it's just it felt like a series that was written for me.
It is just sensational. Conclusion to the Bloodsworn saga. What more could you ask for? It's got obviously the action that we're all searching for in a Papa Gwyn conclusion, but it maintains that heart. It has those slow moments as well, which invest you in the characters even more, and they're the ones that stick with me the most, other than some massive monsters as well. There we go. Fury of the Gods, very proud of Papa Gwyn, and the book that everyone should have read who's watching this, and if not, what are you doing?
I agree.
And read Shadow of the Gods and Hunger of the Gods first, probably. Read the whole Bloodsworn saga. But a bit of a tangent. Please do let us know if there's any Papa Gwyn content you'd like to see. Deep dives into certain books, characters, things that might have been changed, some hidden gems that we know about, and just some top 10 moments as well. Let us know what you'd like to see, because we know more about Papa Gwyn's books than most, and I think we should be banished if we didn't.
Yeah, it's true.
It is true. And then next up for me, I have got Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell. This is his first instalment of a new series, and wow, it begins with a bang. Damalas Shadowmantane. What a name. What a name. You got me hooked from there.
For a few Guinnesses.
Damalas Shadowmantane. Damalas Shadowmantane. It kicks off with him running through the streets as someone shouts, "Come back, rabbit." What a way to begin. And then he saves himself by going into an acting troupe who are, for some reason, guarded in the society against people trying to slaughter you in
Rabbits.
the street. Yeah. And so he thinks this will help him fade into the background in being in a terrible play, but somehow it launches him into the centre of the political intrigue of the city, and it links to the past of this duchy and the present political predicament as well.
Question. Do rabbits feature a major part of this, or...?
No, it's more he's being called Rabbit because he's running away.
Metaphorical.
And he looks like pretty scared.
Okay, that's good.
Because Ed is scared of rabbits.
I'm not scared, I just don't like them because I don't like their noses. And I don't like...
That's cute.
Is it though?
Do you not like Thumper and Bambi?
No.
That's
Stop hitting the ground, mate. What's up?
But anyway, don't worry. There are not many rabbits in Play of Shadows.
Okay,
it's
good.
just the word. It's okay.
Because that's what, like, fantasy doesn't need more rabbits. Waterstone.
To be fair, I do also agree.
Watership Down was enough.
That was enough, and that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Play of Shadows somehow isn't as brutal as Watership Down, but it's one that I love that is sharp and witty, just like Sebastian de Castell's other works, but it has the heart to go along with the humour. So there we go. They are the books. You've got no more, do you, Ed?
No, I'm finished.
Do I. They are the 2024 releases
year.
we're talking about. I did just finish a non-fiction book that I should have included, History of Britain and 10 Enemies, but we can talk about that another time. Very good. There we go, that's wrapped up. So that's the video for today. Let us know some books that we've missed off this list that we have not read yet. Please don't be upset if we haven't included one of your favourites. We probably just haven't read it yet. So let us know in the comments below which ones were your favourites of 2024. And let us know if you'll pick any of these up. There's some hidden gems here, which I really hope you do pick up. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Truth and Courage from the Brothers Gwyn.
Truth and Courage, the Brothers Gwyn.